What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Abundance Podcast with Sonia Gomez. I'm your host, Sonia Gomez, and I'm super excited to see you here. I'm going to invite you right now to take a moment, like, share, and tag 5 people that you know this content is going to make a difference for. Together, you and I have been able to impact over 300 million people worldwide with our content by taking this small action. So I invite you to do so now because you know I bring the fire when it comes to the areas that matter most in our life. Our faith, our family, our finances, and how it's all affecting our future. Today, we're going to dive into another really exciting guest who I am just not only surprised, but really honored to have on the show here. This is a unique situation. Not only is he a stand-up comic, but Kerry Lutz is a recovering attorney and founder of the Financial Survival Network. And for 13 years, over 9,000 episodes, hundreds that he's guest on. He is on my show today. As you guys have comments, questions, go ahead and throw them down below. Otherwise, dive in, get cozy for another amazing show. Kerry, I'm so excited to have you here. You know, it's one thing to hear the introduction. There's so much to unpack. Stand-up comic, recovering attorney. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, what area of law you focused in, and what your mission is with the Financial Survival Network.
I'm also aspiring salsa dancer too. I started dancing about 6 years ago. I should have mentioned that, and changed my life. Changed my life. I was a wallflower before that. You know, I just kept to myself, and now I'm out there. I'm a totally extroverted person. Not really, but it helped.
Well, for the ladies listening in, if you see him in the club, watch out.
Watch out now, that floor. That I burn up the dance floor for sure.
My husband's gonna love
Yeah,
this.
so I was a lawyer for 30 years. I like to say I wasn't a very good attorney. You know, if you came to me and you were accused of a crime, it was time to pack your toothbrush. You were going off to jail. The guy came to me for a divorce. He was losing the house, the kids, the dog, everything. But you know what, Sonia? There was one thing I really excelled at. I was a master. You know what that was?
Uh-huh. What?
Billing. Billing. I personally created the 36-hour workday and the 45-day month. And with all that money pouring in, man, like I got so good at the law biz, I don't even have to practice anymore.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Really, I was a half decent lawyer, like commercial litigation, corporate work. I was really better at devising strategy and figuring out if a case was winnable or not, but did that for a while. And then the great financial crisis of 08 and 09 hit. I wasn't surprised by it because been an Austrian economist for, at that point, 30 odd years, and, you know, knew that our current economic system was completely unsustainable. And the fact that it's gone on another 15 years since the GFC is really the shocker to me, that they, you know, it's like that guy you see on the stage and he's juggling like 20 plates on sticks and he's keeping them all spinning. That's your government and Federal Reserve in action.
You know, it's a terrifying thing to watch. The crash in 08, I was still under the care of my parents.
Lucky you.
I know. But I remember this ghost. It was all like very surreal, kind of like the Twilight Zone. Similar experience when the first, you know, major school shooting happened. I was also in school when it happened, when Columbine took place, and then the financial crisis and, you know, September 11th, all of these different really significant events. And I walked into the kitchen. I'll never forget. I walked into the kitchen and I thought at 7 a.m. that my stepdad was held up watching TV, and I thought it was a movie. There was no way that I was watching this all unfold in front of my face. And then the events that happened to follow, my stepdad walked out of his bedroom when the crash happened and he was ghost white. His eyes were, you know, puffed shut. Everything that he had worked for was gone. To say it was the shock of a lifetime, you know, is an understatement. And the ripple effect of that, just so many zombies were made that day. People just kind of floating through, wondering what was going to happen. That's the child's perspective. I'd love to hear from your side where you see the ripple effect of that happening. I love to dive into this from a perspective because as much as people claim to know, they don't really know, right? And so I want to have a bare bones basic information conversation with you from both a legal standpoint, but also your knowledge and experience over the years. As much as people claim to know, and I don't like to talk politics. As a matter of fact, stepping out on a limb to talk finances, all of that stuff is a new thing for me.
This is a family show. You can't talk about politics, man. There's a lot of obscenities in politics and not just the language.
Yeah, and my grandmother, being old school, said two things to stay away from in public conversation is religion and politics. And I'm like, today we need to talk about our money and God. You know, more people need God in their life. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and discuss it. So let's have a bare bones basic conversation about this. How is our financial situation looking right now? What do you think some of the contributors are to that? And what should we be paying attention to here in 2024?
I just want to make the point that in this day and age, you're better off speaking about religion than politics. You know, like half the people have stopped believing in anything. So you're not going to get an argument from them. And the other people, if you believe in God, they're just happy to associate with you. So better to talk about religion than politics. But no, seriously, right now, where we are, we're probably facing a recession. We're running massive, massive budget deficits, $2 trillion. And the Congress is out of control as far as spending is concerned. Our government's out of control as far as respect for individual rights and as far as carrying out the basic functions of government, which is to protect us from enemies within and without, to provide a means of legally, peaceably resolving disputes among the citizens. I mean, the judicial system is in a state of utter collapse since I became a lawyer, but it's only gotten worse. I mean, I don't want to make like all these things are bad because the countervailing force has been the internet and technology, which has enabled things to stay together as much as they have and enable you to make money in ways you never knew you could before. And all these crises present opportunities. Now, in 2008 and 2009, I thought it was the end of the world. I thought total economic currency collapse was coming. And as a result, I went into this fear mindset, much like your stepdad did. And that wasn't the right way. When the pandemic hit, I said, I'm not playing this game twice. I said, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. And I did incredibly well. I still did well during the great financial collapse. A lot of the deals I put together, bankruptcies were up for sure, but we still did pretty well then. But mentally, I didn't do well. This time in the pandemic, I recognized it as the opportunity and it just business took off. So, you know, yes, your life is somewhat dictated by external events, events that you can't really do anything about other than adjust your mindset and see them as opportunities rather than as existential threats to your livelihood. That's where I learned from my mistakes in '08 and '09. But there's serious problems. We've got a couple of wars going on right now. Wars, by their very nature, are inflationary. We've got all of these promises the government's made, Social Security, Medicare, and all these entitlements, and no means to pay for them. So something has to give here. And there's got to be a revamping of the system. I thought it would happen after '08 and '09. It really didn't. They just compounded the problems. You know, you can't borrow your way to prosperity. Yes, there is good debt, there is bad debt. Good debt is used to buy assets that generate cash flow and retire that debt. But bad debt is financing your lifestyle on your credit card, financing your flat screen, using debt to live beyond your means rather than beneath your means. And I made that mistake myself. You're raising children, you know, you want to do the best for them. You want to be in a good house, in a good area with a good school system. So you kind of bite off more than you can chew. And if it doesn't kill you, you'll be stronger from it. But living beneath your means is the key to not giving into fear. Because if you're living beneath your means, that automatically means you are saving, that you've got funds in the bank, and that if times get tough, you're automatically prepared for it. Living beyond your means means that automatically times get tough, you potentially lose your livelihood, you're going to be out on the street. So that's what I've learned in my few short years on this planet. Always live beneath your means.
Really good advice. It's interesting to see, especially in a time where there's recession and people are more and more conscious about their finances, how the internet access has been, showcases so much consumerism. It's right in our kids' faces all the time. It's right in our faces all the time. If you take 3 seconds to scroll through a social media thread, you're seeing things like the Kardashians come up and all of this opulence, and it's keeping up with the Joneses. I can't tell you how many times I've heard horror stories from entrepreneurs. There kind of seems to be two extremes. And that's kind of the thing that scares me is when I start to recognize real extremes and the center kind of goes away. The middle line kind of goes away because that shows me that there's no balance. Right. And so on one hand, we have people who are going completely haywire. My sister's going to hate me for this, but I'm going to say it. She went completely into doomsday mode when the pandemic hit, racked up the credit card, moved out of town, did all of this stuff, planning for the end. There's many blessings that came out of it, but the recovery of that, when we realize, oops, everything is not going to shut down. Yes, we are going to go back to whatever normal is, and we have another chance at this. The recovery process from that financially is really significant. Likewise, for us, we decided to move out of metropolitan area up into a 10,000 acre ranch and really focused on a quieter piece of our business, came off of line and just kind of watched the crazy unfold. The ripple effect of this is not just financial, there's a physical, mental, which is the biggest area of damage. That's where all of the warfare went, the mental warfare on both our kids and our providers, right? So we moved out of the metropolitan area up into the mountains and started homesteading again, which has really been the foundation for our family for a long time. And one of the things I love to see right now is, even though there are extremes, even though there's a lot of ego-driven content out there, the folks that I'm interfacing with are restoring balance in their homes and households by protecting and providing, building security around themselves and their future, and really thinking about what matters most for their families. And a lot of that is rooted in their faith and their belief that something better, something greater is coming. And how do you prepare for that? So I'm curious, from your perspective, in the face of a recession, knowing that we have access to all of these incredible technological tools, what are some key ways that you are seeing and also advising to safeguard your finances and build your wealth?
Yeah, well, always invest in yourself is number one. Anytime you could take a course that's going to provide benefits, go for it, because you never lose money investing in yourself. Human capital aspect is so, so important. And then you've got assets that you don't even know you have. And it takes some adversity sometimes to find them. And you might have talents that you've never really explored. And then you get the opportunity, you're forced to do it, to actually find new things to do. So there's no shortage. I mean, I just remember my son, when he was in high school, he was working at a ski shop fixing skis. I guess he was okay at it. And he really didn't enjoy it. So he said, and I never told him he had to get a job in the first place, but he wanted his own money. So he said, Dad, I'm going to leave the ski shop and I'm going to do something else. And he found this thing called Text Broker, where he was writing content and doing research for people all over. And they rated you from 1 to 5. He got a 4. And the kid was making $100 a week just doing text projects, research projects. They pay you by the word. And hey, he never looked back. This was literally like almost 15 years ago. So the opportunities now are greater than ever. There's more competition for sure. But if you've got skills or you can develop them, there's really no limit to what you can do here. The only limit are the limits that you impose upon yourself by your belief that you are limited.
I have another question I want to ask you, but in the spirit of believing that you can do anything, I want to know how the heck you ended up being a stand-up comic and aspiring salsa dancer from spending years in legal. I mean, that's a pretty significant contrast, or have you always been funny?
Well, I think I was like 6 or 7 and the teacher, or maybe I was 10 and the teacher said, what do you think? You're a comedian? And I said, yes. I always was into humor, comedians, stand up, George Carlin, Seinfeld, Johnny Carson, Rodney Dangerfield. And, I went to an open mic in Delray Beach, Florida, and these people were so awful. And then I saw a heckler. They couldn't even handle a heckler. And I looked at my friend Ethan. I said, I could do way better than this. So the next month when they had their open mic again, I was there with my routine, a lot of Florida humor, and the people were laughing hysterically. So I haven't really pursued it to its logical conclusion of actually doing shows and stuff, but I'm actually going to be on a cruise and I'm going to perform in front of 40 people there. So it's just a talent I knew. Once I started sitting down to write my routine, man, I was laughing hysterically, and it was just fun. And then the dancing, I just always felt uptight, uncomfortable on the dance floor. So there was a Fred Astaire dance studio, had a group on. So I said, I'm going to do it. So I go there twice and I just got hooked on it. I love doing it. And all sorts of dance, not just salsa, but salsa, hustle, you name it. We do it. And open up my vistas, my vision, You get a little stale, you have to do something new. It's like you drive to work every day on the same route every single day. Why not just take a left turn one day and go a different way? Why not just do that? And that's the way I think life is, because you need new challenges regardless what your age, and you need to be challenging yourself. Otherwise, you're just waiting for Godot. You're waiting for they call Florida God's waiting room.
Yeah. Not anymore. There's a lot of fresh meat rolling in.
Well, we have younger people. Average age still in certain places is up there.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I'm here in Sarasota, second fastest growing city in the country right now. And it's pretty incredible to see the fresh energy coming into the area. I've done work here over the last few years in public speaking, running an entrepreneur mastermind, things of that nature. But, it's very interesting to see over the last 3 years how different the demographic is here and how quickly the area is exploding. In the spirit of that, I'd love to hear from you. What are some areas of investment that you're paying attention to right now and starting to diversify with? Are you going to digital currency at all? Are you staying pretty traditional in your investments? How are you feeling and doing about that?
I buy some Bitcoin every Sunday automatically. And when it gets high enough, I sell it and then start the process over again. The latest breakout hit 47,000. I knew it was a time to sell. I didn't. I said, at this point, I'm just accumulating. I think everyone should have some precious metals in their backyard buried, or wherever you keep it. Midnight gardening, they call it, just because gold's over $2,000 an ounce now and shows no signs of going back. Maybe it'll go down a little bit. It fluctuates like any other commodity. I like energy a lot because it's underinvested in, and eventually we will have energy shortages. It's already happening in different parts of the world. The wars have disrupted supplies, or hold the threat of disrupting them. To Europe, it did, the natural gas. So energy, I like commodities. I think, with the population of the world increasing always, I've never seen it in our lifetimes decrease. Those people all need to be fed. And therefore, food commodities, agricultural commodities, by their definition, have to become more valuable over time. I like utility companies. So what I like is inflation is going to be with us for many, many years to come. It's not just the Fed snaps its fingers and it disappears. It doesn't work that way. It runs in cycles. Much of life runs in cycles, just not aware of a lot of them. So when you look at inflation, how do you hedge against it? And how do you make money on it? And the things that go up most in price, generally energy and commodities. Residential real estate will. So a big bull on residential real estate. And what other areas? Cryptos, like I say, it's emerging. We don't know how that's going to work out. They just started all these new ETFs, which aren't really ETFs, they're ETPs. And those are like, supposedly was going to make the price of Bitcoin and other cryptos go way higher. Hasn't worked out that way. So the market, where you think it's going to go and where it actually goes, often are two different things. So where you think it should go and where it goes, the market doesn't care about you. But keeping your assets in different classes is a good thing. And be open, because investments that worked for your parents, like T-bills, things like that, aren't necessarily going to work well for you.
I find quite a bit of insecurity around the quote unquote traditional investment strategies. I'm looking a lot at real estate. I'm looking at agritourism and investing heavily in agriculture, especially because food quality and food security with population growth or decline doesn't matter. Everybody's got to eat. And the thing is that no matter what side of the political field you're standing on, no matter what religion you are, everybody's hungry. Two results that I heard recently is the average farmer is 63 plus, the average tradesman is 57 plus, and these are areas that are declining. There's also technology coming into and being introduced in these fields at a faster rate than ever. However, when it comes to agriculture and food production and distribution, this is an area that nobody really suspects or notices until it's too late that there's a problem. Our company, Abundant Acres, focuses on designing these food systems in a regenerative way. We call it eco-synergy design. And a lot of families who are aware of the food insecurity that's happening in many parts of our country are heavily investing into farmland, developing it into family compounds, creating sovereign food systems. And these are not survivalists. There's our diehard survivalists who we can depend on to tell us what's going to happen here. But then there's your average Joe who, for the first time in a long time is picking his head up from the desk or picking his head up from his workbench, looking around and asking himself, how am I going to protect and provide for my family? This is too close for comfort. And so I'm really pleased to hear you express interest and also putting money behind agriculture and real estate. Rural real estate is actually an area I'm super interested in, because at the same time that we're experiencing food insecurity in inner cities and many disenfranchised communities don't even have access to clean food, let alone unprocessed foods. I think, what's that?
Food deserts.
Yeah, food deserts. It's insane. I mean, I'm getting phone calls probably 3 to 5 a day from people who want to have access to this food, but just have no way to do it. They're in the middle of New Jersey. They're in Pittsburgh. They're, in the middle of these major cities, and they're seeing my ads and reaching out. And, I'm interested in people. And so we take a minute to talk to them, and it's not what you see on the news. So I've been looking a lot at rural real estate. I've been looking a lot at kind of adding to this new paradigm around real estate development. There's this movement around agri-hoods, which are developments that have community gardens or food sources built into them. And that's kind of one of my big push initiatives for this year, is acquiring a piece of property close to the metropolitan area so we don't have to sacrifice amenities, but really build in the unique selling point of having food security and sovereignty. So if anything does happen, we have that built in. We can close the gates and be self-sustained and self-contained. And if nothing happens, we're building in access to chemical-free, high quality, fully alive food, and building a quality of life and community that we can be really proud to raise our families in. As a mom of 4, that's an area that I'm always looking at. And I wonder, you talked about your kids. I wonder, in this day and age, sometimes I struggle. I have a 21-year-old in college. My first piece of advice to him when he was looking at getting his first job, he was looking at coffee shops and Lululemon, retail opportunities and things like that. And I said, why don't you go to Indeed and pick a job that you don't think you're going to get? Walk in the door, see if you can get the interview. First of all, just go through the process. Walk in the door. What's the worst they can say is no. And then ask them why. Why didn't they pick you? Right? Well, he did this and ended up working at the Yellowstone Club in hospitality, and they're investing in him to become a sommelier, and he's a top bartender, and he's being requested by all of these different private clients, and he's totally thriving while attending college. Having the guts to try something and do something, even if you think the answer is going to be no, is a huge part of building success and momentum in your life and business. But I'd love to hear from you from a father's perspective. How are you talking to your kids about investments, building financial security, safeguarding their investments and wealth building strategies for themselves at this phase and stage of their lives?
So my son took my advice to heart. He saves 40% of his after-tax income, and He's 30. He's got a heck of a portfolio. My two daughters, well, one's really well off. And although I don't know what their financial statement looks like, I don't talk to them about it. My other one married a guy who's like very strict financial planner, and she's like not allowed to like break out the credit card without talking to him. So even though they might not have been savers per se, even though she might not have been, she's an involuntary saver now.
Yeah.
So,
Saver by association.
yeah. Yeah, they've knock on wood, they've never had any issue with it, getting him keeping employment, and they're all successful at it. So, but they're older too. I love the idea of applying for jobs that you think you can't possibly get, rolling the dice, saying what the heck, and just going for it. I think that's brilliant advice, and your children will be well served by that, because you should always a man's reach should always exceed his grasp, as a wise philosopher once said. If I can show my kids how not to do things, if they can learn from my mistakes, so much the better. That old saying, a smart man learns from his own mistakes, a truly wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So be open about your failings, and your kids shouldn't be raising their kids just as a lesson and to show you all the things you did wrong. Just be contrary, but they should recognize your mistakes and build upon them, upon that knowledge. So, really, children, it's difficult because the exuberance of youth. I think George Bernard Shaw said, "Youth is wasted on the young." They think they know everything, right? And we were no different when we were young. And then you get humbled. You find out you really don't know anything. If you could teach your kids, that basis, to always keep an open mind, then you've really accomplished something.
Yeah, I agree with that quite a bit. Man, it's a battle. There's so much influence in our kids' lives nowadays, way more than what I had access to. And I had to find a different approach. My father's an immigrant from Argentina. My mom is first generation, came here and has a restaurateur family. My father, from the ground up built steakhouses in Chicago in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And fun time to be in Chicago, I'll tell you that much, with the mob running wild there. And I had to figure out a new approach to kind of navigate my way through building my success, because the cards were stacked against me. I didn't perform well in school. I was one of those undiagnosed, untreated ADHD kids. I was a disruptosaurus in the class. Really struggled to follow the status quo, where my sisters have achieved incredible success following the rules, and I've always broken them. So when it came to my own kids, we have a daughter that's at Berkshire, graduating this year, second in her class, early admission to Northwestern, knows exactly what she wants to do. And then our 15-year-old is a professional rock climber and loves to write poetry and create art. You just never know. And it's hard to know when there's so much influence out there, how to advise your kids around the things are going to end up making the biggest difference for them, which is like how you build financial security for yourself and, establish wealth so that you can continue your legacy. So for you, with the Financial Survivalist Network, what was your goal in creating this community and starting your podcast and all the different facets? Tell us a little bit more about the Financial Survivalist Network, and what are the components of that?
So when I started 13 years ago, there weren't many podcasters around. I won't say I was one of the first, but it was a technically challenging process to go through. Anybody could learn to do it, but it wasn't easy. You had to spend some time. And, this is right around the time of the great financial collapse afterwards. And we just had like total deception by the government about what really happened, what was going on. And as a result, a lot of people, lost their life savings, lost their homes, everything else. And I just felt like got to create a source for people of divergent views about economic issues, and tried never to get into politics. I think the show always hit its bottom when I did. So I've made a pledge never to do that again. And, that was my goal. And then I would interview all these different different alternative experts who turned out to be pretty spot on, a lot of them. And now they're more mainstream. A lot of mainstream publications really, follow these people now and regularly engage them. And, I realize there's just no truth in the mainstream media. It's all lies and deception. They're just paid liars. And everything is political. So you can't really get to the bottom because labels get thrown around. I figured there's got to be a better way of doing this. So here I am, 13 years later, still doing it.
Tell me the key focuses of your show and where they can listen to it.
Yeah, well, the focus is on economic issues, but we also look at education a lot. All issues come out to economics in the end. We like hard assets. We like alternative investing, cryptocurrencies. We do a lot on crypto. We just do a lot on tech. We've been talking a lot about AI. Join the club. Not just trend following, but I use it now.
Yeah, 100%. Are you using AI in your business and in your
Yeah,
life?
let me tell you a couple secrets here. All right. You're doing a podcast on Zoom. I know we're not using that platform. There's a bunch of plugins, AI note taking plugins, and you have it take the notes and then you go through it because you can't really put those notes up there the way they are. And then you feed them through Chat GPT and you tell it, clean this up, make it suitable for a YouTube post or a podcast post, whatever. And miracle of all miracles, the thing does it within minutes, seconds, and you go through that. So you cut your time, your workflow down by about 80%. So that's just one thing I use it in. Writing things, when I write proposals and such, I'll write the bare bones out and then I give it over to Chat GPT and tell it to take it away. And, if there's a really involved letter that I got to write, I'll do the outline of it, give it to Chat GPT, let it write it, then I'll proof it and send it out. So there's a lot of applications for it. Learning Spanish right now. So estoy aprendiendo hablar español. So get tired of the apps, whatever, you go onto Chat GPT, say, give me 100 of the most common Spanish words and their definitions. And then you work on that. There's so many things you can use it for. It doesn't write jokes real well, though, that at least not as far as I'm concerned. Comedians are safe.
Lawyers out the window.
Lawyers, hey, you're going to have an AI judge soon, and he might not come up with the right decision, but at least he will come up with a decision. The Chief Judge of the United States, John Roberts, warned against AI and judges. But honestly, I don't see how it could do any worse than what we have now.
I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Otherwise, somebody might expose to my personal opinion, which may not be good or bad. I don't know.
Go have a lawsuit against you, and your personal opinion will be worth a lot. Trust me on that one. Not sued that many times, but enough.
It's so crazy, the level of sensitivity. Like my father, who's Argentinian, doesn't think twice about your feelings when he's expressing himself. Just is very frank about what he thinks and feels and generally is dead on, but people aren't built that way to absorb those types of opinions. I always ask this question of the people that I have coming onto the show because one of the areas that my listeners have gotten the most help is from these kind of key tips. We've brushed over some of the investment strategies, some areas to pay attention to. I want you to put on the hat that if you were advising your own family behind closed doors on what to do right now to prepare for the times that we're coming into and how to safeguard themselves and their families, what are 3 things that we have to know to both prepare and then not only survive but thrive in our financial era?
Yeah, told them this. The first thing you want to do is move out of we're not talking political here, so we'll just call them high tax states, because you pay 10-15% more of your income in those states and you get absolutely nothing for it except grief. So move out of high tax states, move to low tax states. That's first and foremost. And this formula worked like a charm for the past 15 years. Actually, it worked like a charm for the past 50 or 60 years. My grandparents moved to Florida in the 60s because lower standard of living, better weather, good place to be retired. But now it's a good place to work anyway. So Texas, all like that. That would be first and foremost. I would tell everybody, make sure you have a supply of food and the ability, a source of water. And that's not just, we're talking not just Mad Max here. We're talking like you should have that no matter what, especially if you live in Florida, disaster state, hurricanes, all that good stuff. And have some self-defense tools available at your disposal because you never know. And then I would say, really invest in yourself. If you got a big house and you can downsize, do it. Seriously thinking about it myself. Problem is, you got to buy your new house for cash or it's just not worth doing because mortgage rates have so raised the cost of a new home. And, simplify your life, sell your stuff off that you don't need. It might have value, have some gold and silver too. It's a little bit more on the list, but I don't think you could go wrong with that list.
Great advice. I'm doing all of those things with a hyper focus on securing land, food, and water. I was at an event with Tucker Carlson, a close-knit event, one that was being hosted by my friend Dutch Mendenhall, who's the founder of Rad Diversified, and he does all alternative investments. I have to connect you, as a matter of fact. I think he'd be a great, you guys should trade shows. He's an amazing person to know. However, Tucker Carlson was speaking at this event, and one of the things that he said, he's like, I'm not saying anything, but I am saying that if you don't have land, food, and water figured out right now, forget the rest, you are going to find yourself in pretty severe trouble over the next couple of years. And I don't take everything that he says as law. I recognize the edutainment factors of what he does. And at the same time, when you are sitting at a table with Buck Sexton and you have the likes of Tucker Carlson, and these are the levels of conversation, just the access that they have, no matter what your opinions are of the government, the access that these people have to information, how these pieces of information are traded and how these pieces of information are casually traded across dinner tables, you pay attention. And so that's one of the areas that we are hyper focused in right now. So if I had to reciprocate and offer 3 pieces of advice, I would also focus on all the methods that you need to protect and provide for your family. Bring balance back to your household and find peace in knowing that it's going to take, both parties, both partners, or better yet, a family coming together and creating a nucleus space where you guys can exist. I love looking at multi-generational housing. I love seeing the presence of grandparents, aunties, uncles, and friends in the lives of our kids, because our communities are becoming more and more divided and our people are finding the little, pods that they belong to. But it truly does take a village to raise the next generation. And I want to raise their consciousness. I want to raise their belief system. I want to make it possible for them to achieve things that we never thought possible, knowing that we have access to tools like AI, for instance, to accelerate not only our learning, but our application of this knowledge and the experiences that come from that. So I believe that a woman has an opportunity to nourish and nurture her family when a man is doing his job to protect and provide. That doesn't mean that a woman can't work and earn and do all of those things. I do. I am a business owner. I have multiple sources of income, multiple investment levels. However, with that balance, your children, the next generation, there's that generational transmission. And so that's what I hope to see in this next generation, and all of the activities, all of the choices that we're making right now is all about securing assets, resources, and legacy for the future generation. That's my advice to you guys. Find land, secure your water, learn about planting seeds and growing your own food, because there's going to come a time very quickly now. And this just happened to me. I went to a chain restaurant, a nice, I would say upper middle, at a really nice mall here in Florida. And we were served lab meat. It was a lab grown chicken and lab grown steak.
Really?
Yeah. Oh
Oof.
yeah. At Kona Grill.
Yuck.
It was disgusting. And it was like
How did you know
rubber.
it was lab meat? Can you just clue us in there? Tell us how you knew?
Yeah, I knew because when they brought it out, it was beautiful presentation. Everything was fine. It was a chicken satay appetizer, and I went to take it off of the stick with my fork, and it bounced. And I went to take a bite of it, and it was full rubber. And when I pulled it apart, just the make of the chicken, the texture of it, you can take I went to pull it apart with my fingers, and it looked like threads that have been sewn together. It had like a very specific pattern. Natural meat does not look like that. I know. grown it. I've had it. I only source from butchers and local farmers here. So I know what it looks like when it's natural, and I know what it looks like when it's not. And so it's already actively in distribution. They don't have to disclaim it to us, and you just never know what you're eating. So even at the highest end places, they're starting to substitute, real food with lab grown, and they don't have to disclose it to you. There's currently no regulatory language in place that requires them to disclose whether or not it's natural. Next time you're at, any of your favorite steakhouses or restaurants, ask them and double check, because we definitely got it. My child identified it right away. All of us were just like completely taken back, between two couples and two kids, $300 dinner, and half of it was lab grown. By the way, lab grown meats are made from the cancerous cells taken from these animals because they're the fastest growing cells in the body. It's pretty disgusting, guys. Take a
Right.
look.
I'm just nauseous at the thought of it, really.
Yeah, I'm nauseous at the decision making that allows us to do it. And they say that good intentions pave the road to hell, but this is the like next level stuff. And my kiddo too, I'm in a position where, she's going to school right now. We had her in homeschool. It's just more than I can do with having a startup and having, homeschool kids at home. So she's at school right now, one of the best in Sarasota. Well, I go to school to see the food and it's just poisonous. This is a little bit of my soapbox right now, but I think it's really important in that, when you're thinking about where you're investing your time and your money, real estate's never going away. So buying into land and creating multi-generational housing or family compounds, it's going to be an asset for the rest of your life. Heirloom seeds is another area that's like my gold right now. Heirloom seeds, real genetics for food, non-genetically modified genetics for cows and pork and chicken, all of these different things. Like, you really have to look into the source and never take things at face value. So that's a little bit on my soapbox. My husband and myself are really focused in acquiring those assets and then developing those assets for other families as well. And if you have half a brain cell, you guys will take more time to look at the food that you're buying, tap into your local food economy, buy from your farmers market and local farmers, because the closer you can get to home with your food supply, the better off you're going to be no matter what happens.
Yeah, could not agree with you more on that one. And God, the idea of like lab grown food just totally turns my stomach. It's like insect.
I mean, it's insane. I'll tell you one more story. I think you'll appreciate this, Kerry. I had somebody call me with AI voice. Okay. We were doing a campaign on LinkedIn to bring in our first guests to the Abundance podcast. And we were outreaching to the agricultural community first, because we want to talk about, what's happening in the farming community. There's this huge transition happening where farmers, they're older, they're set in their ways. They've been producing the food that feeds America and much of the earth right now, much of the population. There's so much to unpack here, but we were doing these outreach campaigns, and I had somebody book in under a particular name. Didn't seem fully real, but I got on the phone with them anyways. It was an AI voice, and they were a whistleblower. And they were talking about how they're introducing nanotechnology into the distribution and utilization of fertilizers and pesticides, and how it's quite literally infusing the seeds so that when the plant grows, there's a certain percentage of pesticide and fertilizer that we will be ingesting, not on the surface that can be washed off with hot water and vinegar, in the genetics of the plant to make it more resistant to
Yeah, there's
pests and
nothing you
fungus.
can do about it.
There's nothing you can do about it. They're literally poisoning us from the inside out. It's nuts. So we're talking about this, and she's like, it's really great because science is and technology is pairing with agriculture, and it's going to make all of these improvements. However, when it comes to the canned foods, when it comes to processed foods, when it comes to industrial agricultural farming in areas like soy and corn and popcorn and, a few other crops, it's starting to get real dicey out there. I don't want to say too much more than that. I invited them to be I say them because I don't know what it was. It was an AI voice. I invited them to be on the podcast. They weren't ready yet. But those are the types of phone calls that are coming through. And there's a part of me that says, do I want to know? And that's the big question, even with money. Like, do I want to know how bad it is right now? Or do I just want to keep my head
Yeah,
down?
you should know.
So it's constantly a question. And so for those of you guys who are listening in, whether you're thinking about your money, your family, the future is coming. And the best thing that you can do is empower and educate yourself with real information, which has been our mission all along, whether you followed us in our previous businesses or just joining us for the first time, where our mission is to empower you with the truth so you can make informed and educated decisions about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and the difference it's going to make for you and your family. So that's my soapbox. Kerry, thanks for listening to me while I went off. I don't usually do that, but the opportunity presented. Kerry, tell me where folks can find you, your show, and follow along as you create more amazing content for us.
Of course, that would be financialsurvivalnetwork.com. We've got a newsletter you should definitely go there, sign up for. And I got a second newsletter and site I'm starting up called the Inflation Cafe, where dollars go to die. And that'll be out soon.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I can't wait to promote that through our network. That's going to be amazing. And I'll be a subscriber to that for sure. I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. I hope you had a great time. You dropped a lot of a really amazing knowledge for us in our community. So thank you for that. And I can't wait to continue the conversation and send you a few people I think would be a great fit for your show as well. Thank you, Kerry.
Great. Please do. We're always looking for new guests. That's how we keep the show fresh and how we keep it going and always reinventing. That's the other thing. Always reinvent yourself, even when you don't have to, because then when you do have to, it'll be that much easier.
Such good advice. I'm in the reinvention stage right now. It's so funny. I kill houseplants. That's like I'm known for that. But my husband is a green thumb. And it's so funny that like we're entering into the regenerative agricultural space. And I, as one of the spokespeople for our business, am talking about how to build a thriving ecosystem when I can't keep a houseplant alive. But they don't know that I have a ninja trick. And his name is James Brinkerhoff.
All right. Hey, those who can do, those who can't teach, those who can't teach, teach teachers, right? That's how it works.
Or they just build success by affiliation as an association. So that's the other thing I'll say, guys. Invest in your network and your knowledge will expand exponentially. All right. Thanks so much, Kerry. Yeah, I'm going to just close her out really quick, guys. Thank you so much for listening in. For those of you who are new here to the Abundance Podcast, thank you so much for joining us. I invite all of you who are listening to like, share, and tag 5 people that you believe will get benefit from this episode and others like it. All of my guests are hand selected because I know that they're going to bring you knowledge and expertise and share their incredible experience in the areas that matter most in our lives. Our faith, our family, our finances, and how it all affects our future. Make sure that you tune in for our next show. Thanks so much for being a part of this incredible community. Together, we've been able to impact millions of people's lives, change legislation, and really transform the world around us. Can't wait to continue to collaborate with you, my incredible followers and fans. Thanks so much for being here, guys, and we'll see you on the next show.